American Crossroads is responsible for the content of this advertising. What happened to Barack Obama? The press and even Democrats say his attacks on Mitt Romney's business record are misleading, unfair, and untrue. Blowing smoke. Too far. No evidence. So why's Obama attacking? He's added $4 billion in new debt every single day. Unemployment stuck above 8%. Family incomes falling. Barack Obama can't run on that record.
Being a successful small business person isn't just about collecting a profit or outperforming your competition. It's about contributing to the success of this country's economy. It's about contributing to your country's continued growth and prosperity. And it's about securing your piece of the American dream and helping your employees and your suppliers and all the people you work with secure their piece of the American dream. If you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. You didn't get there on your own. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there. It must be because I worked harder than everybody else. Let me tell you something. There are a whole bunch of hard-working people out there. If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we had that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
The Republican National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This has not been a show council. This has been a work council.
There's no specific reason, except the president's obviously got a lot on his plate.
Sometimes people forget the magnitude of it. Sometimes I forget.
The private sector is doing fine.
If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen. And most of the money that we're investing as part of this plan will get out the door immediately and go directly to job creation.
The U.S. money has helped to create some 500 auto assembly factory jobs, but they are not in the United States.
Nearly $2 billion stimulus dollars have been spent to build these things. Most of them have been built overseas.
More than 250 foreign workers were hired using federal stimulus money.
Jobs that pay well, jobs that can't be outsourced.
How could it be? A lot of them going overseas, even about to go to China.
A Chinese company called A-Power expects to get $450 million stimulus dollars.
Most of the jobs will come from China.
The plants were getting a combined $300 million under the stimulus program to build electric car batteries. And they filled some of those sought-after jobs with Korean workers. That drew anger from local labor unions.
Nearly 8 out of every 10 stimulus dollars for wind power have gone to foreign companies.
Jobs that pay well, jobs that can't be outsourced.
Most of the jobs are going overseas.
We can't feed our kids at home. It gets hard, you know.
The administration refuses to acknowledge there's a problem.
The Department of Energy says it knew the cars would be assembled.
Very jobs Americans
about
could do.
2,000 manufacturing jobs in China.
But this is American taxpayer dollars, and they should be American jobs that are created.
The true engine of economic growth will always be companies like Solyndra,
We all know about Solyndra, the White House emails, the FBI raids. Solyndra investors raise campaign money for Obama. The government gives Solyndra $500 million in taxpayer money. Politics as usual. Within the administration, the company's potential collapse had long been discussed, knowing all along Solyndra would have to fire their workers. But Solyndra held off until after the 2010 elections. 1,100 workers had no idea they would be fired, but the Obama administration knew. All that mattered was the 2010 election. Optics, not workers. It's not about people, it's politics. Solyndra's workers felt betrayed. Today, 90% of Solyndra's laid-off workers remain unemployed. $500 million in taxpayer money gone. And Obama said this was a model of jobs and growth.
Do you regret that? No, I don't. Overall, it's doing well.
Tell President Obama American workers aren't pawns in your political games.
Is that there are almost 500,000 more people unemployed today than 4 years ago. And if Debbie and President Obama were good on their promises on the stimulus, you remember they said if we passed this $1 trillion stimulus that we'd have 5.5% unemployment today. What that means is if they kept their promises, there would be 8.5 million more people employed today than there would be 4 years ago. The fact of the matter is, this president can't fulfill a promise. They're living in fantasy land. And you know what? We're going to put this dream to an end of theirs in November. Save America, fire Barack Obama, and hire Mitt Romney. That's the best stimulus plan for this country right now, John.
And now a message from the President of the United States.
From 2001 to 2008, for more than a decade, the Bush tax cuts, a decade in the making, the economic crisis of 2008. The Bush tax cuts, the wealthiest Americans contribute their fair share. Big financial institutions, corporations. Big financial institutions, corporations. 10 million college students would lose an average of $1,000 each on financial aid. Their plan eliminate health insurance for nursing home patients, children with autism and other disabilities. Typically taken countries up to 10 years to recover from financial crises of this magnitude. And what is holding us back is not a lack of big ideas, lack of big ideas, lack of big ideas. The Bush tax cuts, lack of big ideas.
1 hour later.
Lack of big ideas, lack of big ideas.
President Obama promised us his health care law
is absolutely not a tax increase.
Now we know that's not true. Obama's health care law is actually one of the largest tax increases in history. Shouldn't Obama's priorities have been creating jobs and ending reckless spending? Instead, he focused on a $2 trillion health care takeover that we have to pay for. How can we afford this tax? We're already struggling. Tell Obama, repeal the health care law and pass patient-centered reform.
Maybe your family is like most, struggling to make it by. But recently, President Obama said,
the private sector is doing fine.
How can our president be so out of touch?
The private sector is doing fine.
How can he fix the economy if he doesn't know what's wrong?
The private sector is doing fine.
The private sector is not doing fine.
Right. Harry Reid make any promises to you?
Yes, he did.
What would those be?
I won't tell you. It's still a private conversation. I've talked to him this morning. I'd like very much at some point soon to be able to identify what they are. But they were important to me, and I asked for them, and he's agreed. So
Mr. Hasselbrook, you had said that Senator Kerry gave you his word that he was going to help you with your campaign. That's why you got out of the Regents race. What changed? Did Bob Kerry go back on his word?
Well, I'm moving beyond that. One of the things I've learned in life, Joe, is that, well, for one thing, carrying a grudge. Whenever I've carried a grudge, it's hurt me more than anyone else.
Senator, did you feel you went back on your word to Mr. Hasselbrook?
No, I don't, but I'm with Chuck. I mean, I do think it's important to recognize how extraordinary what Chuck is doing, how extraordinary it is, not to carry a grudge, not to not to worry about what's been done yesterday, but trying to figure out what we need to do for tomorrow.
It is reasonable to at least suppose that that vote is one of the reasons that Senator Nelson decided to step down, because a lot of Nebraskans are upset by it, which raises the issue with you. If you run, if you're elected, and this comes up in your first term, would you vote to take Obamacare down?
No, I wouldn't.
I'm on the board of the Natural Resources Defense Council, and climate change legislation is the top of their agenda. And I have the, I would say, unenviable task of trying to persuade a group of 8 to 10 senators to vote in the affirmative. My view of climate change and climate change legislation that comes out of identifying that as a problem has to be considered in the same fashion. If you believe it's a problem and a moral challenge, you have to vote in the affirmative.
And it's going to take revenue increases to solve the problem.
Are you ready to vote for a tax increase?
Oh yeah, it's going to take additional revenue. If you lock yourself in to no tax increases under no circumstances, you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Bob Kerry's record?
I rise today to express my opposition to SJR 41, the Balanced Budget Amendment.
He was wrong then, and now our debt's more than tripled.
It isn't just because I live in Greenwich Village now. The longer I've been here, the more further to the left I get on health care.
Kerry's for Obamacare, and he lobbied for Obama's job-killing energy tax, urging senators to say,
damn the consequences, I'm going to vote yes.
Liberal Bob Kerry is out of touch. American Crossroads is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Bob Kerry's false negative attacks on Deb Fischer. The last decade, Kerry's lived in New York. He's out of touch with Nebraskans and desperate. Nebraskans deserve better. Deb Fischer's a common-sense Nebraskan, small businesswoman. Deb Fischer passed the state's largest tax cut, worked with Governor Heineman to cut spending and balance budgets, and Deb will work to repeal Obamacare's taxes on the middle class. Deb Fischer does things the Nebraska way, responsibly. Deb Fischer, a Nebraska senator.
I'm Deb Fischer, and I approve this message. I'm Deb Fischer, and I approve this message.
Deb Fischer is a Nebraskan, conservative backbone, character. A small business rancher used to hard work. A state senator who passed Nebraska's largest tax cut, 100% pro-life. America faces big challenges and career politicians are to blame. Deb Fischer wants to change that by cutting spending, a balanced budget, repeal Obamacare. Deb Fischer works the Nebraska way, responsibly. Time Washington did the same. Deb Fischer for Nebraska.